I think part of why it has been hard for a lot of people today, especially some of our older viewers and listeners who grew up watching Bobby or were a little closer to him than we were in terms of age. When someone is that great at what they do, it becomes very difficult to have to like cope with your feelings on it, right? I remember years ago, Jeff Pearlman wrote a book about Walter Payton and shared some unflattering things about Walter Payton's life with his wife and his faithfulness and those sort of things. And people were outraged. They did not want to hear a bad word about Walter Payton. That's me. Walter Payton is my Bobby Hull. I don't want to hear it. You know what I mean? But if Walter did what Bobby did, that would change the way I feel about Walter.
Yeah. I mean, there's a difference between indiscretions and being an asshole.
Yeah, flat out evil.
Yeah,
Yes.
and Michael Jordan's another one of those guys.
Right.
He's on a pedestal in this town, rightfully so.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of stuff out there that maybe he's not this great guy that everybody thinks he is, and so it's up to each individual to decide how they want to compartmentalize that. To me, I have a hard time separating person and player or art and artist. There's a lot of times where people that, actors or musicians that I have loved for years, and then
really
stuff
tough.
comes out and you're like, God, this sucks. I don't know what to do because these songs were important to me at a time of my life. Maybe this was a song that pulled me out of a dark place many times. And now I hear it and it ruins things for you. And that sucks.
Yeah.
And I get that. But you also have to empathize with how other people's actions can take them, instead of pulling them out of dark places, can throw them into dark places. So there's no right way to handle all this stuff. If you're hurting, you're hurting. And that's not wrong.
It's okay.
If you're indifferent,
Cool.
fine. Nobody should be happy. Somebody still lost a father today. Somebody still lost a family member. We don't know those relationships. So there's no reason to be doing a victory lap today. Just out of just being a decent human being, there's no reason to do a victory lap.
Yeah.
But if you're hurting, that's okay. That's fine. That's, I'm sorry you're hurting. If you're indifferent, that's a perfectly reasonable response to.
Michael in the chat is one of our elder statesmen of the chat. He says, Bobby Hull, the player, saw him hundreds of times at the stadium. Always great to the fans. Greatest athlete I ever saw. Unless you saw him play at the stadium, I can't explain the excitement. And I think back to, you talk about the sports time machine. My first trip would be back then to watch Bobby and Stan play together.
Yeah, my parents.
To this day, if Doc Brown pulled up right here and said, "Where are we going?" I'd be like, "Chicago Stadium, let's go."
Yeah,
I want to see it.
My parents were big Hawks fans in the late 60s. They were married in 1961, and they had season tickets for the first few years of their marriage until my sister and I came along and ruined all that for them.
Yeah, they'll do it.
That was their choice, though. So I heard many stories growing up about Bobby Hull and Stan Mikita and all those guys. And Stan Mikita or Bobby Hull was an amazing hockey player, one of the fastest players of that generation, but tough as nails too.
Yeah.
He's a guy that, much like Gordie Howe would, not shy away from, hey, if I needed to punch you in the face after scoring a hat trick, I will.
Yeah.
And take great pleasure doing it.
That famous picture of him with the lip busted and the blood dripping down the shirt, you could see why he was, not only because of the skill, but not wearing a helmet, the golden hair, the $1 million smile, good looking guy. Like, he had everything. Someone today compared him to Sinatra on Ice, which you could probably make that comparison in a lot of ways.
He owned this town.
He did
for decades.
There's a picture of Bobby Hull baling hay. That's how he would get in shape, would just work on a farm. And there's one of him baling hay, and there's one of Gordie Howe fishing, and they've got their shirts off. And you have not seen a person built this way.
I guarantee you, those guys never took a CrossFit class in their life.
No.
Never lifted a weight. They never did anything, and they probably smoked cigarettes and drank 3 cases of beer, a week.
Yeah.
Yet they just knew how to do it. Like they were different. They were on a different level. than anybody else.
Definitely.
And you know, as time wore on, Bobby Hull's legacy, you know, he became stuff of mythical proportions, and rightfully so.